Hello, my name is Patricia Potts, and I would like to address a question that someone asked me the other day. She said, first of all, what are the symptoms of bipolar illness? Because she knew I had written a book about it. And second, is it hereditary? So I'm going to attempt to answer those questions. I don't have a degree. My degree is in experience, but I hope you'll find this helpful. For me and my story, which is different than many other people's story, but a full list could be found just on bipolar illness symptoms. But I call it watch out for the roller coaster and listen to the Lord. Because for me, that my story really probably began when I was way back in high school. But the part I'm going to share with you is when I was in my 20s. I had kind of taken on some responsibility and, had 2 kids and went on the way, and I started doing preschool to make some money to finish off the basement, and then added daycare to that, adding, church responsibilities. Pretty soon I was pretty close to the top of the roller coaster. And one day my husband came home and mentioned that the grass was drying out and that there were fingerprints all over the glass door, and I was done. There's that fight, flight thing that we all have. Well, I did the flight thing. I put on an old coat and started walking the street that night. I ended up in a stranger's basement. I called my sister and spent the next day at her house and then over at my mom's house, and was taken home by a church leader. And Dan and I had to go through some pretty big learning during that time of our lives. So anyway, for me, it was like a roller coaster, just taking on more, thinking I could conquer the world. My name was Patty. People teased me about being Patty Perfect. Up we go. Until one day you realize no matter how hard you tried, you can't make everybody happy. And bam, within hours, I had gone from being, well, maybe not hours, from maybe about 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 7:30 at night, hours before, I crashed. And I was to spend almost 3 months dysfunctionally depressed. My mother-in-law came over and took care of the kids. She took care of the house, all of that. So again, for me, it was like a roller coaster, building, and then bam, within hours. Other people have that happen daily. And perfectionism is one of the symptoms. So that's how it happened for me. I was to go through 2 other depressions before a friend of mine, Cher, suggested that I see a psychiatrist. And through the prayers of many friends, of about a dozen different, churches and things, I asked him to pray for me at the time I was going into the psychiatrist, and he was able to correctly diagnose and give me the right medication. And at that time, I learned a lot of things through both my counselor and through a class that I went to. And some of the things that I learned, I'll just share a couple of them because I think they're critical. First of all, I learned the DARE principle, DARE, denial, acceptance, rebuilding, and eventually sharing. So I went through that, in that I took on all of that, denying the fact that I was taking on too much. Acceptance, well, for me, it was like from one day to the next, so it wasn't so hard for me to accept that I was going through depression. I couldn't say otherwise. Some other people, it's different because they can go day to day to day. And in many ways, that's harder. But denial, acceptance, rebuilding my life, from Patty Perfect, and that was when I changed it to Patricia, and eventually sharing with others what you learn. Another thing I learned when I was put on medication is what I call the three-legged stool. Medication, support, and God. You need all of those three, in my opinion, in order to, handle and get on top of and be able to function as a bipolar person, or with bipolar illness. Anyway, so that's answer one. What are the symptoms? They're different for different people. You can see a full list on the internet. But for me, it's characterized by roller coaster. And for me, it's down within hours. For other people, it's not that way. So, and the second answer is if it's a hereditary. I don't hold any medical degrees or anything. I've gone through, I got my degree from life experience. So, but I have observed in my own life, my father had the symptoms of bipolar, and I am bipolar. And I believe that some of my posterity is bipolar as well. I can see those characteristics. So if you're working with someone and you're seeing those symptoms, if it were me, if they would be willing to get out of the denial phase into the acceptance phase, which is not always easy. A lot of times those of us who are bipolar don't want to. It feels really good to be manic, and you feel like you're got the world by the tail. So anyway, if they're willing to, I would have them go to a psychiatrist and be evaluated. So those are the answers to those two questions. And if you've got any other questions, I'd love to be able to answer them here on YouTube. You can go to my website, which is just my name, patriciapotts.com. Has a lot of other help free there. Or you can find me on Facebook, or go to our book, Our Journey from Darkness to Light, and ask away. I'm kind of an open book person. Thanks for listening.